Hello. I think I am now live. Hopefully the chat is working. Just gotta verify some stuff. Okay. I think we got it. Perfect. Pico-8 font and a non-Pico-8 editor. Yeah. This is Sublime Text, and there's a Pico-8 extension. Hello. Hello to both of you. I'm just gonna wait a bit before we get into it, but first of all, thanks everybody for showing up. And yeah, today I think we're gonna go start to finish. We're gonna make a piece. It's not gonna be too complex for a couple of reasons. So I want to stick to basics. So I'm not gonna really mess around with, like, you know, the system memory and stuff like that. You know, I'm just gonna stick to primitive shapes and colors and stuff. And I'm gonna focus on dithering. I think I got a hey Chippy, teach me. I think I got a question about how I like to do dithering and stuff. So I think that's going to be kind of the focus of the piece that we're going to make today. Definitely, you know, backseating welcome. So if you guys are curious about stuff or have ideas for things that you want to see, I can try to make it happen. We'll make this piece together. There's no minting on FX hash right now because they're closed, but I'm going to go through and show, like, how to prepare everything for FX hash, you know, concepts behind, you know, how to approach generative art and how that's different from, you know, just making digital art from, like, from a one and done standpoint where you're making a specific piece versus where you're trying to explore, you know, an algorithm or a generative output space. And then I'm going to show, you know, how to format it for FX hash, how to upload it, whatever. And then maybe, if it's a fun piece, maybe at the end I'll mint it not on FX hash but on like hen or something, and come up with some way to send it out to everybody who's here in the chat today. At the end of the chat. One last thing I wanted to mention. Oh yeah, that's right. Let me just gotta go to GitHub real quick and get a link. So all the code today can be found here. I just posted the link in the chat there. So I'm going to be updating that repo so that all the code will be there, so you can just grab the code and use it however you want. So that'll include this example piece, which will have comments and stuff in it, but it'll also include you know, the templates and whatever files you need. Yeah, and I guess everybody say hi to Carson. He's my moderator in the chat today, so he's going to be helping out. All right, let's get started. So first of all, I guess I'll walk through sort of my working environment here. I've got the Pico-8 console itself. You know, it's got these different tabs here, you know, for music editing, map editing, which honestly, like, I've never used. There's a lot of powerful stuff you can do, but, like, there's only so much time in the world to learn stuff. This is the Sprite Editor, which is really powerful and really great. I don't like to use it, mostly because of my lack of artistic ability and my inability to, like, take an idea and turn it into pixels. So that's why I stick to math for basically everything, which is here in the code editor tab. This is where we're going to be working essentially the entire time. And also when you hit escape, you get to the actual terminal where things run. So to start with, I've got this here, this FX hash snippet that I've commented out. It's really just there to save time later when we need it, but actually I'll show you. Print s So if I were to run this as it is now, by hitting Control R, it's just printing 1 because here we're declaring s equals 1, and that's the seed that we're going to be getting. But we're operating on this string that we're getting, which is supposed to be the fx hash, but we don't actually have that hash, so we're just getting a seed of 1 every time. And for debugging and testing, that's very non-ideal, because we'll just have an identical piece every time. So what I'm going to do to start us out here is something that I really like to do in all my pieces. So first of all, if you call this RND gives you a random number. It's basically the Pico-8 random number generator. If you call it with an argument of -1, it is equivalent to calling it for the maximum range of possible values. So I'm just going to go ahead and say s equals whatever random number out of every possible fixed point number. So that's going to give me a random seed that's unique every time. But the reason I'm doing it this way is because I want to have this seed be programmatically accessible as a variable so that I can use it for various things elsewhere. So step 1 is going to be getting a random seed, which I believe is seeded with the system time initially. Then once I have that random seed, I'm just going to call srand, which seeds the pseudo-random number generator with a fresh seed based on whatever integer you're supplying, or whatever fixed point number you're supplying here, and that's the number that we just got. So now basically now we have a script that does nothing. There's a couple things that I like to set up. This is gross, but here's the loop essentially. I'm using goto because it's like the way that uses the least characters in tweet carts. We're not going to make a tweet cart today. A tweet cart is a Pico-8 cartridge where all the code fits within a single tweet, and it's really challenging, but it's also really fun. So we're not going to do that. Carson, do you mind share? Oh, he's on it already, man. Amazing, thank you. So we've got this loop here. This is a goto. That's going to be our essential drawing loop. Normally what you would do is goto is not harmful. Well, agree to disagree. But normally, you would use built-in functions, which honestly it's been so long I don't even remember. I think you go like function init. And then this would be the equivalent in P5.js of setup, and then you can do function draw, and that's the same as draw basically. You can also do draw 60 or something, draw 60, I don't know. Goto is just really easy and simple, so that's what we're going to stick with right now. I also need to initialize, update 60, thank you, yeah. I need to initialize this here because this command basically sets the Pico-8 to run at 60 frames per second, which I prefer just because it's smoother and nicer. So if you can spare the characters and the compute, then I say go for it. Okay, so the concept that I had kind of for the piece today, I guess there's two major things that we want to accomplish. So when I make generative art, I like to focus on it the same way I kind of approach a scientific experiment, where in order to demonstrate a result or show something clearly, in science, there's sort of two elements to that I deal with. So the first is the visualization element itself. That's where you have to take the concept and make sure that it's being visually expressed in a way that the viewer will understand what the concept is and what they're seeing. That's a natural fit for visual arts, so there's not really much to talk about there. Just make it look good, make it show the thing that you're trying to show. Then the other element is the experiment design. So that's where you have to choose which things are going to remain constant and which things are going to change. and it's equally important to think about what's constant and what's changing, because that's going to tell you how the changes actually impact the algorithm or whatever you're trying to show off. So here we're going to try to make a piece that focuses on different styles of pseudo-random dithering. So in that regard, I think that we're going to just pick one color palette and we're going to stick with that. And well, maybe not. But the idea for generative art for me is, I like to keep certain things constant and change other things, so that it's the changing of those other things that gets emphasized due to the fact that everything else is, sort of being held constant. And that allows you to really understand the relationship between, like, ideally you can understand some sort of intuitive relationship of the algorithm or the geometries itself just by looking at multiple outcomes from the generator. So that's what we're going to try to accomplish today. But to start with, we're going to do something really simple, which is we're just going to draw between 1 and 4 circles. So let's start out by saying num circles equals RND 4 plus 1. We're going to go ahead and get the floor of that so that we get an integer. I promised not to print everything, but I just hate calling R&D this way. Usually I have helper functions. So this appears to be working 1, 4, 4, 1. Okay. Yeah, normally I have helper functions that I have written to do all of this, but I'm kind of just doing everything from scratch here for the sake of the tutorial. Like instead of drawing from my existing body of code. Okay, so now we have this num circles variable, and it's really important for fx hash in particular that this call to random, that basically every call to random in your piece is occurring after you've initialized the seed using the fx hash hash that you receive. Otherwise, the piece won't be identical every single time that it gets loaded. So now we're going to be, based on the random seed, we're going to get a number between 1 and 4. 1 and 4, and that's going to be our number of circles. Now we're just going to go for, for I equals 0 to num circles, do. And then we're going to go, let's see, we're going to put the circles. What's that do? Okay, so this is part of this goto loop. So this basically corresponds to our draw loop. So draw loop start, and then this here is draw loop end, and then anything after this seed initialization, that's going to be like, oh, whoops, setup starts here. Oh, and also it's important periodically to save, because the Pico-8 does crash sometimes when you record a GIF that is too big or something like that, or at least it does in my hands, because I don't think I'm treating it with a lot of respect. So this basically is just a marker. This underscore here can be any symbol, so we could be cute if we wanted, and do, where's my smiley face at? There we go. Okay, there we go. So that's shift. Shift in the Pico-8 does different special symbols that are still characters. I almost said ASCII characters, but they're not ASCII. They're P8-SCII or whatever. If I'm pronouncing that correctly, I don't know. Okay, so this is the draw loop, and basically this double colon syntax basically creates sort of a tag here on this line, and then we can say go to and then specify the tag variable, and it will go to the location of that variable. I don't I don't want that, but it's good to know. Okay, so now we've got a loop that's going to just loop through the number of circles. That's going to draw our circles. I haven't changed any colors or anything yet, so we'll get to that in a second, but I'm just going to preemptively put X, Y, R, and then 15. The Pico-8, if we go here, these are the stock colors, and you can see this is color 0. Lua is a one-indexed language, meaning that if you have a list, which you define like this, so this is a list with 6 integers in it, and the integers just correspond to the index positions in this case. So there's index position 1, 2, 3, 4. So Lua is one indexed. However, the color palette list is still one indexed, but it additionally has a special color assigned at index 0, which normally by default is black. That's important because that means that even though there's 16 colors, the index of the 16th color is actually 15, not 16, which is different from every other, table in Lua essentially. As well, it's important because whatever is in color 0 will be treated as the background for the transparency. But that's more for if you're using the sprite sheet, which we're not. So the reason we're going to be drawing our circles at color 15 is because we're going to be doing a dithering cascade, where we're going to actually cascade through this sequence of colors linearly down to 0 from this. So we're going to basically draw our circles. Yeah, you know what? Let's not say color 15. Let's say minimum 13. I think that's going to work. These random numbers without my helper functions are driving me crazy, so maybe I should get the helper functions. I'm not going to do that. Okay, so this should give us a value between 13 and 15. No. Okay, wait. 2. Okay, so random 2 is going to give us a maximum of like 1.99 plus 13 would be 14 plus 99, so we do need 3 there. Okay, perfect. Okay, so right now if I call this, it's going to throw an error. Or not, it's going to do nothing. Well, that's slightly concerning. But we basically we're calling X, Y, and R here, but we don't actually have an X, Y, and R. So first of all, we're going to declare our radius. I'm actually going to, no, I'll just use a local variable. Local R equals, okay, that's a good question, John. Floor would be better from like a code cleanliness, like a code hygiene standpoint, because it does explicitly operate on integer values. However, there's a syntactic sugar in play here where when you specify a color, if you specify a fixed point number, it will just drop, it will automatically do floor on it when it receives the value. So most of the time I don't bother specifying floor. And that's also true for X, Y, and radius. It can operate on these fixed point values, and it will just treat them, however it needs to treat them. Although for pixel positioning, sometimes that can lead to some weirdness. So it just depends what you're trying to accomplish. But for me, I already know this is going to be like a really messy looking piece, probably, or maybe not. I don't know. I only have like an idea in my head. I don't really know what it's going to look like yet. So we want a radius. I'm going to go ahead and we're going to start off with something simple, and we're just going to say 16. Local X equals RND. So the Pico-8 display ranges from, maybe I can show in the sprite sheet. It ranges from like 128, from 00 to 128, 128. Or maybe it's 11 to 128, 128. Or it's either that or 0 to 127. If it's 0 to 127, it's kind of one of those other weird things because everything else is one indexed. So sometimes I test this out by, maybe I'll do that here because I should be responsible. Let's just draw a pixel. 0, Yeah, it's 0 to 127, but really inconsistent. Okay, yeah. So we can do p set 0, 0, 7 is white. Interesting that that's happening. Okay, well, we didn't really learn anything from that, and I'm not going to delete this code, so. Okay, so X and Y position, if we go back to the screen. Oh, you can't see the mouse. Okay, well, imagining this is the screen, I want the circles to appear randomly, roughly in the center. So I'm going to basically say plus 40 and then maybe 40. Wait, that would be a max of, yeah, that makes sense. That should be symmetrical, I think. No. Like this. Okay, so I didn't do that correctly. This should probably be 40 after all. There we go. Oh, of course. I'm also going to add a call to CLS here. That's going to basically, before we get to the draw loop, that's going to clear the screen. Looks like my mind when I don't take my Adderall. Could be, could be. Okay, so this is, so right off the bat, we're noticing this, this sort of chaotic noisiness, which in itself is kind of interesting. You know, we've got a, basically we made a squircle, so congratulations. The reason this is happening is, that's a nice texture. The reason this is happening is because we are calling this loop over and over and over, and each time we do it, we're getting new XY positions for these circles, as well as new radii. There's a couple things we could do to change that. This is something that I've been calling seed looping, but this is the most basic form of it. This is not a new thing at all, I don't think. But basically we're just going to call srand and pass our seed in, and now you can see we're just getting these circles like this. That's way more than 4 circles. Little concerned about that. So this is a typical experience for me where I'm happy with how it looks, but I'm also concerned because it's not doing what I expected it to do. Really unsure why this is happening that way. Num circles can't be more than 4. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to draw a circle. Well, honestly, I'm happy enough with how it looks. But do you guys want to see something? This is the beauty of what I've been calling seed looping. Oh, you know what? I should show something else first. There's another important function that we're going to actually add right to the end of our draw loop, basically, not flip. Basically, the way the Pico-8 operates, there is a graphics buffer where as graphics like drawing functions are called, whatever, it's going to fill up this display buffer, and when that buffer gets full, it will draw to the screen. And so the frame rate will be weird if you're ever exceeding, if you're going under the exact amount of computations that you want per frame, it will sometimes be weird or appear sped up or something like that. And if you exceed the amount of operations that are possible per frame, it will only render, you know, part of what you're seeing. Calling to flip can help control a lot of this ambiguity, because flip basically just says when you get to this line, render the whole display buffer or graphics buffer or whatever to the display. Visually right now that doesn't make much difference, but later on, if anybody's curious, we can toggle this on and off and view what the difference is. Now here I'm going to do another interesting thing. This is really what I oh, good point. Yeah, thanks, Carson. The built-in draw function, if you recall at the beginning, I said instead of using goto, you know, we can do function draw, and then basically anything we put in here is going to be in the draw loop. For like a bigger game or a more complicated visualization, that's definitely a more ideal way to do it. And that calls flip automatically. That's, I guess, a point to Alex's point of goto not being necessarily harmful. That's one reason why goto also can be really fun, because for some projects you actually explicitly don't want to call flip because you want to exploit, like, you know, scan line effects and things like that. So here with if, there's two ways to write an if statement in Pico-8. One is if space condition space then, and then you write what you want to have happen, and then you do end. However, if you are writing a tweet card and you want to save characters, or you just have a one-liner anyway, you can use this syntax, which I really like, where you just do if, and then you have your condition in parentheses, and then you have whatever you want to have happen on the same line. So here I'm going to do a call to random with no arguments, so that's going to give us a random fixed point number between 0 and 1. And I'm going to say if that's greater than 0.5. Hey JMH, if that's greater than 0.5. And now you'll notice that we're going to start getting occasionally larger numbers of circles. Now what's interesting is we can actually increase this, and we're going to get lots more circles, and then we get this nice sort of half static, half animated looping effect. The reason this is happening is because we're resetting the seed, which reseeds the pseudorandom number generator, which means that when we call these random functions here, it's going to give us the same values it originally gave us. You know what? Maybe I should put another srand right here. That's a nice one. Yeah, this is going to work really nicely. Okay. So we now are going to get the exact same values. Once this srand has been called, we're going to get the same values in the next iteration of this loop when we go through and call random again, including, you know, the color, everything. What we're doing here is we're calling random to dictate whether or not we're going to reset the actual seed. So for some seeds, just by chance, this will trigger really early because maybe the first call to random is going to be greater than 0.9. And if it is, then we're going to reset the seed. Then we're going to go back here, and it's going to repeat, and it's going to repeat including resetting the seed, because that's deterministic based on the seed. However, for some seeds, this won't happen until it's already gone through the loop many times, which we can control by increasing the stringency. So here, you know, it's uncommon to get this reset occurring. You know, there it's basically never going to happen. Here it's essentially always going to happen, so we're not really going to get very many at all. So it's a nice sort of exponential curve that allows us to get a variable number of circles and also play with this idea of sort of statically animated things. So this is what I've been calling seed looping, and it's something that I'm having a lot of fun with lately. I'm working on a fun piece right now, but we'll see how that turns out. Okay, so now we've got the bare bones of this, but we don't have any actual dithering. So time to start dithering. I'm gonna share a link in the chat. Tweet carts. Hang on, I turned off my favorites toolbar. I do not know how to get it back. Well, that's frustrating. Carson, could you do me a solid and share the, you know, the tweet cart tutorial thing? If you could share that link, that would be super radical. But basically, there's these, that's the one, thank you. There's these, yes, that is exactly it. There's these tweet cart tutorials where they kind of walk through some of these example tweet carts. That was one of the first things that I started exploring once I decided that I didn't want to just do these, you know, 3 body problem simulations over and over. and that's where I learned about this really basic dithering technique. I cannot imagine a simpler dithering technique. So that's what we're going to start with. And the way that one is set up is you just go for I equals 0, let's say 1,500. So this is just going to loop 1,500 times. And then we're just going to go local x equals RND 128. Local y equals RND 128. So that's going to get us a random position on the screen. And now we're going to go pset. That draws a single pixel. Pset xy, and then for color we're just going to say 0 because that is the default background color. And now we've got this wonderful sort of staticky dithering effect, but it's very basic because all that it's capable of doing is setting it directly to the background color, and it's also only using single pixels. What we're interested in is going to be a little more complicated than that, because what we want to hopefully show off is how different dithering patterns can lead to different visual impacts. But we'll get there. What we're going to do next then is we're going to make another variable called C for color, and we're going to go pget xy. Pget gets the color value. It gets the color value of this pixel. How can we find more examples or even a thesaurus of digital effects like dithering? I think probably a good place would be, well, I mean, first of all, we have a Discord where we share a lot of tips and we answer questions to each other and stuff like that. So someone could drop an invite to the Discord in the chat. That's one good place. And I know that Sable Raff on Twitter also has a creative coding Discord, and he recently put out a tutorial, him and one other person together whose name escapes me at the moment. I'll grab this link later for you if you remind me. They put out a tutorial, sort of a thing kind of like you're describing, where it's like an encyclopedia or a glossary or something, where it has these different terms, but it also has examples with code and stuff. It's really cool, and it's a great place to go. And then other than that, I can't really speak to where to find some of these, because like I mostly just ask people directly on Twitter. If I think they're doing something interesting, I just ask them about it. That's a great point. Thank you. Yeah, Travis Old Dog, great person to follow, great tweet card artist. You can also go to Twitter and search for hashtag tweetcarts or hashtag tweetcart, and you will see tons of people making these amazing tweet carts and sharing the code, and a lot of them have really nice explanations of how the code is working and stuff. So yeah, tweet carts. Yeah. Wait, is it tweet carts with an S? That's gonna drive me crazy. I always messed it up. Okay, so right now, if I were to put this C here, so okay, back to art. If I were to put this C here, now what we're doing is we're getting this pixel color. It's without an S. Thanks. Now we're getting this pixel color, and we're drawing. We're dithering, but we're dithering with the same color that is already drawn, so that has no effect basically. If we were to instead do something like this, we now get this psychedelic color looping effect. And this is happening this way because of the seed looping, so the random positions are essentially fixed. However, it's also happening because when you go, when a pixel is at color 0, which is the background color, when you call pget, for example, at that position, if you go to -1, it will now specify color 15, so it loops back on itself. Yeah, I'm sharing all the code on GitHub. I'm gonna upload it all at the end. So And maybe if anyone wants me to comment specific lines, drop a comment in the chat saying, can you comment this line or something, so that I'll write a comment so that it doesn't just get lost in the sea of, you know what, I'm being lazy. I'll comment everything when I upload the code because I should be doing it anyway. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is for C, we don't want this actual looping effect. Well, okay, we might want this color looping effect, but for now we don't. So one way to do this is you can take the absolute value of whatever we get from pget minus 1. So that way if we start with 0 and we go minus 1, that will turn into a positive 1, and that will be color 1. That gives us this flashy sort of pulsing staticky background. However, that's still not what I want, so what I like to do, and we're now deviating a little bit from the very, very basic one that I saw first, but I like to just say max this or 0. Oh, wait. Minus 1. There we go. Okay. Now, so what we're seeing here is, oh, I really wish it wasn't hiding my cursor. So we're seeing like some of these circles have different colored dots on them, different pixels on them. That's because this cascade is happening, but because our dithering algorithm right now is set up to only look at a given pixel's position, it can only then draw on the same exact position. So what we're going to do now is add a little bit of noise to this. We're going to go to whatever the x value is for where we get the color. So we're getting the color at position xy. We're then going to go to position x minus 1 plus R&D 2 or 3. Gonna have to double check that. But this is going to add a sort of wiggle factor to this, so you can already see how it's basically breaking things up a little bit and spreading them apart. Nice, that's a nice one. So already we're doing something that that is kind of critical to this process, because this is, for me at least, this is a very iterative process. Some of these outcomes look cooler to me than others. So it's a matter of like thinking about that and thinking like, do I want to actually bias it towards some of these versus other ones? And the answer is I do a little bit. So I'm gonna just crank this up a little bit. I could stare at it all day already. Well, thank you. I'm glad you feel that way. See, that's really nice. I like that a lot. But we have not even gotten started yet. Okay, so now this is not going to be final. But just to show you, I just want to show off kind of the core idea that we're going to play with here is we're going to demonstrate what happens when you use different shapes, different sizes, different parameters as you draw the dithering brush. So instead of using strictly you can use Control D to instantly copy a line below. Oh, thank you. That's really helpful. I normally am working in Sublime Text. Oh my God, I love that. I'm normally working in Sublime Text with a Pico-8 theme, and in here, you know, I can just Control C and then Control V like that. However, oh geez, what have I done? Oh right, okay. Yeah, however, Control D is going to be really handy for me, so thanks, Carson. Okay, so now with circ, there's one missing argument, which is the radius. So I'm just going to specify a radius of 2. And now, right away, you notice that the traces of the original circles are basically gone. Like, there's still traces there, but we're not seeing them nearly as much. That's because the dithering brush is deleting so much more as it goes through this cascade, but it's still seeded by the circles. So here's one that's very static. So and to me, like, having this as part of the generative output, it's a question of like, do we want this or not? Like, do we want static ones or do we want them all to be animated? And you know, some of the temptation for me is like, oh well, I think the animated ones look cooler, so they should all be animated. But then you have to balance that with a trade-off of like, well, does having the static ones in the generative output better show the thing that I'm trying to show with this piece, which in this case is sort of like how the seed looping works and how this dithering process can differ based on, you know, brush settings and stuff. And I think in that context, having the possibility of these static outcomes does actually add a lot to the piece, because when it's static like this, it allows you to just sort of focus strictly on the specific frame that you're seeing, versus something like this where, you know, it's a little person wearing a hat or something. But already these are looking pretty cool. So now we can do something like this, where, you know, we can even randomize the circle dithering size. And honestly, like, this is the stage where, you know, if I was using, you know, my engine code base, I have a lot of these dithering functions pre-made, and I add new ones, but I have sort of, you know, I'm writing it in an object-oriented way with functions for things, and, you know, I can easily mix and match. Here I'm going to do something that, you know, is gross to me, but no, you know what? Let's be responsible. This is fine. Okay, I'm gonna show you something fun you can do with Lua, because everything is tables. So we're gonna go here. How to do this? Dither equals. Okay, and we're gonna go wait, let's paste this here. We're gonna go function pix dither end, and we're gonna need XYC, and then we're gonna do function circ dither XYC, because the radius is being you know what, and I should make these a little more legible, assuming this works. Okay, fine. The radius doesn't need to be a variable here because it's already just randomized within this dithering function, but we might want to make that a variable. However, if we make that a variable, because of how we're about to do this, we're going to then have to well, you'll see, we're going to have to add it to, we're going to have to add an R here. You know what, we can just do it. XYRC, XYRC. Oh man, this is going to get absurd quickly. And I guarantee that someone in the chat is going to be like, why don't you do it this way? And I'm going to be like, that's a better way. Which I don't mind, actually. So now we have two dithering functions, and we're going to choose which one we want to use. So we're just going to make a table with both dithering functions. Pix dither, and let's actually go like this. Circ dither. Okay, so now we have this global variable called dither, which is going to be a function because we are calling random and giving it a table. When you give random a table like this, this is also a nice way if you know that you only want, actually I keep forgetting I can give examples. Like for example here, instead of doing 1t in circ dither, oh thank you, 24-hour VIP permanent. So instead of doing 13 plus random 3. We could also just do RND 13, 14, 15, and that's basically a random choice of these 3 integers. So you always have that available as an option for a call to random. Here what we've done is we've created 2 functions, and we're calling a function called dither. It's going to randomly choose one of those functions and use those. So now for our dithering, we can just call dither x, y, rc. Yep, and let's get another thing in our sort of setup area over here. We're going to initialize a radius dither circ rad. I'm being way more verbose than I usually am, just for legibility. And you know what? Let's do it this way again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That seems like enough. And then we're gonna say local r equals. No, let's not do that. We'll just put it here. You know what? I couldn't stand it. Okay. Boom. So that works. So now we're going to not only get different dithering functions, we're going to get different dithering functions with different parameters every time we initialize it. Oh, and you know what? I can tell. Okay, let me find an example of this happening. Okay, here. Notice that on the bottom right edge of this curve, there's more pixels that are kind of like growing down in that direction. And we're not seeing the same thing in the top left. That could be explained by random chance. However, we're seeing that really consistently. So what I think is happening is I have miscalculated here, and this needs to be a 2. Never mind, I don't know what I'm talking about. Does it need to be a 4? That doesn't make any sense. Well, whatever, I'm not too concerned about it for now. P set x minus 1. Oh, right, I didn't change it here. Duh. This is one danger of doing things in this way too. There's a lot of duplication. Storing functions in tables is the most useful asset in Pico-8 generative art creation. I think that is possibly true. There we go. Nice and centered. Okay, next step. We're getting these nice dithering cascades. However, because the palette we're using is this default palette, we're not really getting a nice, fun gradient. So the next thing I'm going to do is set up a gradient. I also just had another fun idea. But first we're going to decide what our palette is. And again, this can be random, you know, but I'm not going to, because for this piece we just want to focus on showing off the sort of the dithering effects. So pal is a Pico-8 function, and I actually have some prepared material for this. If we let's just go ahead to pal. Pal is a Pico-8 function where basically there's a couple ways you can call it. You can either do like, you know, color 1, color 2, corresponding to the index. Oh, thanks, Carson. Corresponding to the index, and draw state. We're going to use 1 because that's everything on the screen that's already drawn. And basically this allows us to change the colors so that, you know, where are we? So that these colors are no longer these colors in this order, but they can be any colors in any order. However, that's not exactly true, because we actually, even though there's only it's a 4-bit color, so we can only have 16 colors. However, there are actually 32 possible colors. So we have the official base colors here, and then we also have these secret colors here, which I am a huge fan of. And also it's worth noting that you can call this color 128, or this one, 143. This color is also -1, -2, -3, so on, and this is -16, which I like, and I find that to be, just simpler and more pleasant. However, because I'm too lazy to do that math right now, I'm just going to type the big numbers. But just keep it in mind if you ever want to. Sometimes you can save characters by using the minus syntax, and it also allows you to do some cool randomization. I mean, let's hear from the chat. Do you guys want random color palettes, like fully random, or do you want to choose one color palette that we agree looks nice together and only use that? Choose one palette. First time chat from viewer. You gotta respect it. One palette, one palette, one palette. We're doing one palette. Okay, so my idea for the palette is, well, actually, I'm gonna save myself some heartache, and I'm gonna not use this because it's messy, and I have something pre-made, which I'm just loading up here. Bear with me. Ta-da! This is my wonderful cheat sheet for Pico-8 palettes, which I made for myself to save me time when I'm doing color gradients and stuff. Man, it's... Sorry, I don't have a second monitor, so I'm doing everything on one half of the screen right now. So let's get this over here and this over here. Okay. Make sure I can see the chat. Okay. Yeah, there's also oh yeah, Po Dogson. Yeah, there's a ton of great places to do color palette selection. I've never heard of Chroma, but I'm going to check it out later for sure because I love that kind of stuff. I also really like colorbrewer2.org. That's probably because I'm coming from a data science background. But I think that some of the palettes in there are really pleasant and really useful. Don't worry about screen caps. I'll just put this in. I'll just put a copy of this cheat sheet in the repo. I don't use it much anymore because I have a library of code that has a bunch of pre-made palettes and stuff. But this, none of this, like colorbrewer2, Chroma, any kind of palette picking, that would be lovely. However, in the Pico-8, you really only get to choose from these 32 colors, and that's it. So there's no other colors available. It would be interesting to think maybe we could write a shader that would run in JavaScript that would transpose colors to a different color. So if that's possible, then like maybe we can look into that. That's a fun idea. Anyway, let's slap some gradients together. What I would really like to do is have a gradient that goes, it's dark on both ends. So normally if you wanted to change, remember I told you that the 0 index in the palette is a special one. So if you ever do want to change the background color, that's how you do it. You basically specify the 0 index in particular and you set the value. However, we do want that to be 0 in our case, so we're just going to leave it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, you know what? make things a little more syntactically pleasant for ourselves. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So these are our colors. There's 15 of them because we're keeping 0. And this is our palette. So what we're doing here is we're going to basically we're going to specify the actual colors in the code will still be referred to from 0 to 15. But by specifying here, we're going to determine, you know, position 1 corresponds to which of these colors, and so on and so on. So I know that we want to end on 0 on both ends, so I'm putting a 0 there. And I'm thinking like blue-red is always kind of fun, so we're just going to start off with something simple. I'm just running along this palette here. So 0, minus 15, 1, minus 4, 12, 6, 7. Now we're going to switch over to this palette. No, we're not. Maybe this one? Let's try that one. So we'll do 8, minus 8, minus, no, and then we'll just go 2, minus 3, 13, minus 11, minus 14, we have one more color, minus 15, we already used that on the other side. We didn't use minus 3 or 2 anywhere. No, we did. We just used them. Yes, I can see that now. Then let's just leave it as a 1. I like to think of it as re-indexing the colors. Yeah, that's exactly what it is, I think. So this is pretty cool. I'm actually surprised at how cool this is, because this was just like a random idea. I really like the pixel ones. I don't like when the circles are too big. I don't like that. So 3 still kind of feels too big, but it's good to show it off. All right, what do we think about these colors? We can change them. The white kind of sticks out a little bit, in my opinion. Well, on the other hand, it's really nice accent to the red. You know what else I'm noticing? We're not getting all the way, we're not always getting all the way through the palette because of the seed looping. Very American. What prevents the cascading from going too far from the original circles? I mean, too far is subjective, but basically it's that they go to 0 and then they run out, but we have where's my dither functions? We have this centered on xy. So it's going to draw over itself multiple times, and we're just doing this loop. Right, that's another thing that we can make variable. We're just doing this loop a set number of times. So basically we can control how often we want to do this, and we basically go over the, like this is going to overuse the compute cycles, which is why everything is slowing down. Yeah. They will propagate out, but they won't necessarily propagate out too much. See, that's not what I like. These are really beautiful. These, not so much. So maybe we'll get rid of those later. Okay, what I'm trying to get at here is if I were to not center this randomness, let's cut back a little. There we go. If I were to not center this, which I guess I'll just do now. If I were to say like x minus 1 y minus 1. And then likewise here. Sorry. Just letting my brain process. If I do this, x minus 1, y minus 1. So here we get a cascade. Now we see that it does get farther away from the original circles. This is kind of one of the principles behind the Pico cascades that I have up on FX hash. What I like about this is you can end up with some stable parts of the cascade that don't change, and they span the whole palette, so you get some static parts of the screen that show the palette very clearly so you can see what it actually looks like, and then you get some not static parts where you can't see that. And I actually want to change the red colors, just because it is a little American, you know, and I don't want that. Let's do -7 here, -2 here. Get a nice orange color. We're going for movie poster vibes. Yeah, so don't think I really like that yet, but we can circle back on this cascade. Represent CA, Canadian flag, iconic logo design, useless palette choice, because it is just red and white. Love everything about this. Sci-fi movie poster for a pixelated metaverse. Yeah, exactly. Why are some static cascades and others like fireworks? Is that intentional? That is intentional. It has to do with this seed looping that we're doing, and it's basically the exact, like, that question is kind of the exact thing that we're trying to explore with this generative piece. So here, these ones kind of blowing up all over the screen, that's occurring because it's calling the circle dither function instead of the pixel dither function, and the, oh my god, that needs to be R. Ladies and gentlemen, we got him. That circle dither function behaves differently, because instead of just overwriting a single pixel on the screen, it draws a circle which can overwrite further pixels. But when it draws a circle, that other parts of that circle that were unrelated to whatever triggered that circle actually being drawn can now also be a trigger for the next stage in the cascade. So basically that's why. Wow. Oh, and the reason that one happened like that, so you'll notice it went through a bunch of stuff and then got fixed. And the loop you could see that it was stuck in was actually very short. Like this one, presumably there's only two frames that are alternating. I don't even know if the flickering is going through on Twitch. Can you guys see this like very slight flickering effect? I bet the bit rate is abysmal. Okay, so this this flickering, thanks guys. This flickering is because like every other frame, it's using the same seed for 2 loops to go through this loop twice before this gets triggered and it's resetting the seed. So because of that, basically it ends up with a short loop. However, it still has this oh, there we go. Finally, I was waiting for this to happen. It still has this non-deterministic lead-up time. Well, it's deterministic, but it has this non-equilibrium lead-up time because the whole process is based on, you know, using what's already drawn on the screen in a feed-forward loop to feed what's going to be drawn on the screen in the next frame. And because of that, even though the pseudo-random number generator is being reseeded, that doesn't mean that you're going to get an identical frame on your display. because the contents of the frame are going to be depending on what's already on the frame, and that's why you have to first reach some sort of dynamic equilibrium. Once you reach an equilibrium like this, then it will repeat in the same loop. I quite like these. That's a bit too chaotic. I'm sorry, like, I know we're showing off how it works, but like, I don't like it, so be gone. Honestly, I don't even like that. I do like that a lot though. Okay, so now we really only have two dither functions, and this isn't even a variable. Like, it's embarrassing that I'm currently doing rand1, so why don't we try something out and just make big circles. Okay, so you can see that had a semi-disastrous effect. Let's cut that back. One thing we can also do is we could make this variable. So we'll say dither loops equals rnd. We want a minimum of 100. We want a maximum of 5,000 basically. And we're just gonna go here and replace this. So now we're also going to get a subtle difference in the amount of dithering that's possible, basically. Oh, and for context, I think it's good to show this because I mentioned I would. So here's what it looks like if we drop the flip. In this case, no real difference because it turns out we're not overusing compute cycles, so it's not really a big deal. However, here's what happens if we drop this, and instead of reseeding, we allow it to be random forever. So now this won't repeat. This is not a loop. It just runs in this sort of organic flow indefinitely. Which is cool in its own right. I don't know. But I like the seed looping. Or maybe it's not so much that I like it, it's more that I'm obsessed with it right now. So let's get it back because I like it. See, like, that's just cool. Okay, let's get one more dither. Let's get at least one more dither in here, and then maybe I'll start packaging this for fx hash. Brer, I notice a lot of times it seems that your scattering is mostly square. Do you ever... yeah. Great question. I do a lot of square stuff. I don't always like to do something like, go to radial coordinates and make things circular. I sometimes do. Instead of circles, I often prefer spirals because I think that they're more interesting visually. But I don't really, like, we could make the dither cascade, instead of just being one direction, we could make it sort of dither along a spiral, which I've done before, but it also, like, visually it doesn't really work as dithering a lot of the time. And honestly, I like this square vibe. I like the squircles. I like lately making squares by only drawing circles. Because I think it's really absurd. Yeah, I mean, like, the display is a square. Speaking of squares, that's what we're going to be making next. And I think because we're using a radius function for everything, like a radius variable, I think we're just going to continue to use that. So we're going to do square dither. Actually, we're just going to say sqr. This is going to be rect. Absolutely wrecked. Okay, now how to do this. We want there to be a wiggle to it, but we want to use the radius because I don't want to rewrite these functions. And the way that the circle is called is x1, x2. That's right. Okay, it's coming back to me. so we're gonna go, this is easy, we're just gonna go minus r, x plus r, y plus r. Hopefully this is in the right order. We get rid of r there. And then instead of rand 2, it's going to be rand 2 times r. Oh, right, but r is really small. No, we're not calling it. We're not even using it yet. That's right. Sorry, I do that a lot. Okay, so that's in there. Now, these are our circle radii. We'll see how that looks. Let's get a square one. Oh, there we go. That's fine. So now we have a square dither. Except it does look like it's cascading in one direction. Yeah, it definitely is. So I've done the math wrong, which is unfortunate. Because this shouldn't be random. That's right. You know what? That's right. We can do... This is going to look kind of dumb, but I think it will be fine. So we're going to randomly jiggle the vertices of this rectangle by 1 pixel in either direction, but it's not going to be the same. Every single call to the dithering function is going to be different. There we go. Oh, kind of don't like that. They just deleted themselves. So that's another thing that happens with generative art, right? Is like you're going to see an outcome where you're just like, well, I don't want that. And that's sometimes very frustrating because you have to figure out specifically what was causing it. That's another reason why you can benefit from storing the seed explicitly, because now, right before we call flip, so again, flip is what's going to draw everything onto the screen. So right before we call flip, we can call print. There's also a nice shorthand for print, which is just a question mark. This is really useful for tweet carts. That reminds me, there's one other dither method that I want to use. Sorry, my brain went on 2 tracks. We're just gonna, for debugging purposes, we're gonna print the seed at the top left corner of the screen, so that this way, if we see an outcome that we don't like this one, we can manually set the seed to that. And you know what? Just to simplify my own life here, we're gonna make this an integer. And here's another handy shorthand for tweet carts. If you do \1, that's the same as calling floor, essentially. So now, blah, 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 I'm trying to get a bad one that we don't like. Okay, 29699. So now if we want, we can just say s equals 29699. And now we will always get this bad one. And that allows us to basically now print, if we want, we can print out what these values are. We can figure out what's causing this weirdness. I just remembered to save it. We can figure out what's causing this weird issue where, the dither cascade sort of happens and then just like fades out and disappears. My guess is it has something to do with the seed loop. So let's just see what happens if we change this to be higher, maybe. Yeah, that's nice. Now though, just because we fixed that doesn't mean that we've actually helped our situation. So let's actually take a look and make sure the other ones still look good. They do, but I can't tell if they're looping enough. So maybe 9.9 or like short enough loops. So maybe 9.9 was a bit of an overkill. Let's try like 9.5 or something. Okay. Okay, seems to be working. Now we're gonna double check our bad seed again. And we're back. We're right back where we started. Interesting, interesting, interesting. Let's go to 0.9 and we'll circle back to that later because I don't want to waste too much time on it. Okay. Now there's one last dither function that I want to put in here. I'm just gonna get some code from an old piece that I made. This is from my PicoPunks piece. Alright. So in the PicoPunks code, there is a method that I use right here. Just going to copy this. And we're going to go here. Okay, and we're going to go function P8 ski dither xyrc, and I'm giving everything xyrc because I basically need all these functions to take the same arguments because we're calling them programmatically by doing this. Okay, so here this is pinball style. This is going to be so dumb. This is a very strange function we're doing here. So this is calling print. This is an escape character that tells it to render it in pinball style. Period is a shortcut for the concatenation function. CHR is a function that will take a ordinal number and convert it into an actual character, like a string. Here is something that gets a random number within a certain range higher than 16 because the first PETSCII characters are not anyone feel like pasting that in the chat? Pasting this string? Sure. The PETSCII characters are like the first 16 of them are like control codes for various things, so you actually don't really want to use those. So basically what this is doing is getting any random character within the Pico-8's repertoire of characters, and it's going to print that at this XY position, which reminds me we actually don't want XY, we want these. And I actually am going to say print here and be nice, mostly because I want to make this easier to read. So we're going to call print arguments xy. We're putting the same sort of wiggle, although that's probably unnecessary. We're putting the same sort of wiggle that we put on the other pixel methods. That's right. Okay, so the, and I'll save some time. Negative 12,362. So let's, whoops, oh god. This equals negative 12,362, I hope. Yes, okay. Okay, so why is that happening that way? The answer is because characters, when drawn, have a size. So we actually, in order to get them centered, we need to, I'm pretty sure, just like subtract 4 from them. Oh, and the height, subtract 3 or something. It's pretty close. No, that's definitely going up. Okay, that's about par for the course. Too much in the other direction. Okay, that seems about right. Okay, so now let's say let's see, 220. Okay, perfect. Okay, so now we've got our working code. I'm gonna go ahead and turn off the seed debugger print statement for now, just so that things are tidier. Now we are going to get ourselves ready for fx hash. Assuming this was like the piece that we wanted. There's more stuff. I think there's a lot more we can do to explore this piece, but also editing is a concern for me. I will often just keep going and going and going, even though, you know, I'm moving past something that was cool. I hate when this happens. You piece. Okay, so now we basically have our cart. The last thing that we want to do is we want to make sure that we are utilizing this. We want to make sure that we are actually utilizing the fx hash seed. So we have to take our fx hash snippet up here. We have to take the fx hash snippet, and we have to I'm just making it a little nicer to read. We have to take the fx hash snippet and then use this for the seed instead. So here, stat6. Stat is a really important Pico-8 function. It basically pulls system data, or, you know, stats from the like from the console itself or whatever. But with the argument 6, it's pulling a string from, excuse me, it's pulling a command line argument that was used to launch the Pico-8 emulator. So here we're actually going to do, we're going to get that string. So get string from JS. So we're going to get that string from the JS. Here we're going to init seed here for each character in hash. So basically here we're doing a for loop where we are going through every position in the, that's why we're starting at 1, because it's 1 indexed. And it ends at hashtag W, where W is this hash string that we have. You know, we can call it H, actually. You know what? We can call it hash. Hash. Okay. So this is a shorthand that means length, basically. So this is from 1 to last digit in hash, and basically we're gonna go. We're just doing some math here that I don't have time to explain this, and I don't understand it well enough to explain it anyway. So if you want to know more about how this works, talk to Murat Atimte. Hopefully I'm pronouncing his last name correctly. I got this code from him originally. I think he said he got it from Lokmi. It's great though. It's just a simple way to convert. All this is doing is it's taking a string, it's iterating over each character in the string, it's turning it into a number, it's multiplying that number and adding it to a previously existing number, and that allows you to get a unique number for any given string, basically. So you're just turning a string into a numeric seed that you can then apply the seed. And now you'll notice that we're always getting the same thing here. That's because we are not actually providing this command line argument, so we're always going to get the same seed. So what's next is we need to export this. Now the way I have it set up for the sake of the example is to keep things simple. There is a template function that you can use on the Pico-8 I like it, but it's also sometimes just as easy to do this. So what we're going to do is we're just going to type, once we've run it, so save your cart, run it. Running it is important. Use Control-R to run it. That will make sure that you've loaded whatever the latest changes are that you've made. And then once you have that running, you can drop out here. You're going to type export cart.js. We are going to see an error message here. I'm just showing it because it happens to me every time. Please capture a label first. This is important if you want to upload your Pico-8 cartridge to the official library of Pico-8 carts, which is really awesome because then other people with a Pico-8 console can do like load hashtag cart name, and it will go to the website or go to the server, download the cart, load it, they can play it, they can change the code, whatever. It's a lot of fun, and it's like one of the major draws of the Pico-8. For us though, we don't care about that because this one is it's not going there, it's going to a different place. So just press F2 and you will get a label image, and that's all you need to do. Now we can do export cart.js, and it's going to just say cart.js because that's the file that it output. Now we can go to our folder here. So I've got this folder pre-made here, and basically like we have this cart.js. We also have this index.html, which this is the boilerplate that I have got ready ahead of time for this. Now I'm going to walk through this a little bit. This is that index.html boilerplate. This also contains the JavaScript that's gonna run the Pico-8 emulator and stuff. But basically it has this fx hash snippet, which you can get from the fx hash website. And since I am being good as much as I can, I will show you where that is. So you can go to about on fx hash, and you can go to guide to mint generative token. You can go to 3 ways to start a project. You will see webpack boilerplate, etc., etc. Simpler boilerplate with a single HTML and JavaScript file. And here you can find snippets and things that you would need to add to your code to make it work. However, I'm also obviously providing my snippet. However, just be aware with the snippet that I'm including in the repo, it is, I think, technically out of date, and as fx hash improves and adds new functions, you're going to want to make sure that you're still using an up-to-date snippet, otherwise you won't have access to those. But the key thing here is within this snippet, it's going to get this fx hash variable. The key thing for us is it's going to get this fx hash variable. Now, there are other ways to set this up. There's a thing called features, which I'm just going to show you. We'll go to my creations here. We'll go to this one, and we'll go to this one. So here I have a tweet cart that I made. So this is an example of a tweet cart, by the way. I have this fx hash snippet, which technically makes it exceed a tweet cart. But here, this all fits within a single tweet. So this is my tweet cart code, and that's generating these images, basically. So it's heavily compressed and like very hard to read because it's just going in here, but that's what you end up with. This piece is similar to what we're going to be using today. It uses sort of the same template, the same boilerplate, and it does not have features. So if you go through here, you go down to the details, you see that there's no sort of features or rarity stats. It's just, you get the piece, and that's your piece essentially. By contrast with this Pico Cascade series, that uses what are called features, where you get your piece. It's unique to your hash. This is the cascading, the cascade piece that I was talking about before, where we're seeing this dithering cascade, but it's being played out in a very specific manner. And it has noise, so like the stability changes as it goes through the cascade. But anyway, here we have features where it's actually I'm revealing sort of what some of these variables are. There's a way to do that. I can tell you in the Discord if you want help setting that up and whatever. Reach out in the Discord. We can help you figure it out. Carson and I have both used it extensively. However, it is kind of a more advanced technique, so like it's better for when you're more comfortable with how this all works. For now, we're going to focus on setting something up without using features, which for the Pico-8 is fairly straightforward. All we have to do is use this fx hash snippet. We're going to get the hash here as fx hash, and then this is all just syntactic stuff and formatting and CSS and stuff. 10-minute quick 10-minute YouTube tutorial. Okay, great. Yeah, I'll be curious also if your way of doing it is nicer than mine. So. Okay, so here is where, for calling the Pico-8 in the JavaScript, for calling the emulator that's going to run your cartridge, a couple of important pieces here. Here is where we're going to run this cart.js script. That's the cart that we just saved and exported here. Does Pico-8 version matter? Yes, it does, but it only matters. It only matters if you want to use features that are in a new Pico-8 release. So the latest release has some cool features, like this piece this piece and the snowflakes piece use a memory address. What the heck? Oh, I didn't actually use it for that. That's right. I use it in this one though. Here no, that's the wrong memory address. Here I'm going to this memory address and setting this value. That's a new feature in version 0.2.4 of the Pico-8, and that allows me to create this feedback loop where here, I'm only drawing a few circles, but then I'm using this feed forward loop. I also use it extensively in this piece. It's like screen mirroring, except it's not mirroring. It's literally copying and rescaling certain parts of the screen onto other parts of the screen, but it's allowed to feed forward, so it creates this sort of looping effect. That's unique to the latest version of the Pico-8, so if you want to use that feature, then the version matters. Otherwise, it doesn't matter, and what version of Pico-8 shouldn't change how this boilerplate works at all. And here you can see we're calling it with a couple of arguments. The first one is giflen16. That's optional. I like the 16-second GIFs for export because you're more likely to actually catch the loop. I think this is the maximum length for the web export GIFs. But then the important one here is -p. Anything that follows -p as an argument is going to be passed in as a string, which we then call using stat6. So stat6 will get whatever value is here. And here what we're giving it is this fx hash, which is the hash from fx hash. So step one now for testing is we're literally going to take this index.html and we're just going to run it. So that's step one. And it does appear to be working. We can click on the screen. It's not doing anything. That's fine. We don't want it to. And now when we refresh, we should get a new one basically. Perfect. So this is, if you're working with features, I'll show later. Maybe I'll do another tutorial or something for the features, or Carson will probably cover it. But there's a workflow where you can actually work out of the browser directly, but you need to repeatedly export your code or whatever. So this is working. We're happy with it. We're now gonna wrap this up for fx hash. So one thing that really threw me with fx hash for a long time is you don't zip a directory. You actually just zip the it doesn't matter what you name it. You just zip the cart.js and index.html files directly, and you're going to end up with an archive. That archive is what we're now going to upload to the fxhash. So step one of working on fxhash, and this is really important, and if you don't do this, I guarantee you are shooting yourself in the foot. Step one is you need to go to the sandbox, and you need to verify that your code is working the way that you expect it. So we're going to start out by dropping our index here, and then we click Start Tests. So now it's displaying the hash. It loads the piece. We're going to retry, take a good look, and then we're going to regenerate with the same hash, and we should see the exact same outcome. So that does appear to be working. So then the next step is we're going to get a new hash, and it should be a different outcome. And that also appears to be working. And let's try, retry the same one, etc. So yeah, so it's working. And you can see here it says, features. This token does not implement features. It's not mandatory, blah, blah, blah. And we know that we did that on purpose. So that's it basically. And one thing I'll note, just because it might frustrate some people because it confused me in the beginning, if you leave this page running for a long time, I don't know if this is long enough. So if you leave this page running for a long time, but it's not actually that long of a time, it's kind of a short time, and then you hit retry or new hash or whatever, it sometimes won't work. Yes, exactly. It'll do this. If this happens to you, you got to go, you got to just refresh the sandbox page and then reload your file here, and then it'll be working again. Okay, so then if we're just going to go through it. It's not going to work because the contract doesn't work, but so now we've done the sandbox. We know everything works. So now we're going to go to mint generative token. I have carefully checked my zip file, time to mint. We're going to drop the zip here again. We go to upload. Now we're going to see this. You know how IPFS is. Sometimes it just takes a while. While we're waiting for this, any questions in chat? Is everybody getting, is this useful for people? Have I covered kind of what people wanted to see? Is there any open questions? Is it possible to edit only one outcome? Great question. No, basically no. If you have you can edit one outcome in the sense that you can load a specific seed, and then when you're looking at that seed in particular, you can change your algorithm to change what the output of that seed is. However, that will also have consequences for everything else. You could try to do something like a little hack that would be if seed equals this seed, do this thing differently. However, that's not going to catch everything. If you then wanted to really, get something like that going, you would have to say okay, the issue is when our circles are this big, we need less loops. So then you have to have some sort of statement that says if this circle size equals this, then shrink the reduce the number of dither loops to blah blah blah. You can make specific statements that try to govern parts of the generative space or restrict parts of the generative space. So it was really just stalling out there, so I'm just going to try reloading it. I see there's a bunch of questions, so I'm just going to start trying to answer those. Okay. thanks, blah, blah, blah. It was great. Well, you're very welcome. Thank you for showing up and for the great comments and stuff. Failed TX says, how did you learn to do this? Trial and error mostly. So I've been coding, let's see. I've been coding for maybe 16 years. But I only started visualizing stuff with code in 2014. And that was scientific data visualization, although I really loved it, so I kind of went wild, and that was in R. And at the same time I was doing that, I had a focus on data mining, data visualization. Over time, I also started doing a lot of things that were more like simulation, and now at my current workplace, I work at a company called Cyclica, where we do machine learning research and develop techniques and approaches for creating cheaper, safer medicines. And part of that involves, simulations, genetic algorithms. Really, those are kind of my specialty when it comes to programming. Tends to be data visualization, simulation, genetic algorithms, that kind of stuff. Seed exploitation, pseudo-random number seed exploitation is something that I think is less common even in people doing the same things as me. It's just something that I'm really obsessed with, the notion of like, what is randomness and what does it even mean to be random? And I think that randomness is subjective. So people always say like, oh, pseudo-random number generators are not random. They're only pseudo-random. But I think that creates this false dichotomy where it implies that there is some sort of non-pseudo-random thing. Like, I don't know that there is such a thing as randomness without subjectively defining who the observer is and whether or not they know what the outcome is. All right, hell yeah, we got it. So now here, we're here in this, but yeah, other than that, just trial and error, just messing around, ask people questions, hang out in the Discord. I've learned a ton of stuff from working with everybody in the Discord, so that's been a lot of fun. Yeah. Okay, so now we've got this thing loaded up. Oh no, I've never seen this before, but we've got this thing loaded up. Let's try hitting new hash and see what happens. We've got this thing loaded up. The next thing is we're going to go through here and look for a specific outcome to use as the preview for the token. I'm still trying to find out how to make a transparent color overlay on Pico-8. It's definitely possible. You just have to use the sprite sheet. I guarantee there's more qualified people to answer that in the Pico-8 Discord. So if we do get the link working, sorry, I haven't scrolled down and seen the recent chat. If we do get the link working, hop in and ask questions, and someone will absolutely be able to help you. I didn't know what Pico-8. Yeah, you should. Ali FR23, you absolutely should try coding on the Pico-8. It is a ton of fun. Further investigation, integrating FXCs. Okay. Discord link not working. What is the Pico-8 license for using it in other works, like embedding it into something like an NFT? That's a great question. I see Carson already answered it, so thank you. Okay, great. Everybody's on top of the chat. So this is not working. Oh, there we go. Okay, it's finally working now. Okay, so just for the sake of moving on, well, no, let's get one more. Oh, I shouldn't have clicked it. Oh, it's because I don't like these ones. So because there's an outcome here that I don't necessarily like, I wouldn't actually mint this on FXHash. The hardest part of generative art is this curation process where you don't want there to be outcomes that you don't like. However, if I do mint this, like somewhere else, just as a token or whatever, I won't care because I'll just make it so that if you click, you get a new one. So that's fine. You can be way less strict if you're minting the generator itself. I just really want to get a cool one, even though this is just a demo. Okay, this is a demo, so it doesn't matter. So let's say we wanted to keep this one. We're almost done now, by the way. We're wrapping everything up. So you're just going to want to, once you have one that you like, you're going to say, I want to keep this hash for the preview of my project, and you want to verify that it works correctly. Here again, we're going to get to the capture configuration. You're going to choose fixed delay. And I like to err on the side of caution and set a 16-second delay. Longer if it takes longer for the equilibrium that I was talking about to be reached, but that's going to depend on your piece. But I would not go, honestly, I would not go shorter than, you know, like 4 or 5 seconds. You want to do viewport capture because that's going to capture the whole square, and we've already scaled everything to be perfectly in the square, and 800 by 800 is a fine resolution. So then just once everything's set up, you click test capture. Is it possible to use the Pico-8 sound engine for generative music? Yes. I haven't explored it yet though. I'm way not a musician. You can, there's a couple of ways to make sounds. You know, there is the built-in sound editors and stuff. Okay, so there's our preview. It works. We're going to go to the next step. You can use the built-in sound editor and stuff, and you could presumably have different loops that you could call in different ways. There's also, interestingly, some print escape character codes that you can use to generate little beeps and boops. So you could make generative noises that way. So probably a lot of things. You would be exploring new ground, I think. So here, this is an important step. This is to basically verify. This is to verify that our preview image does represent the piece, and it is working. So then we go there. Now we're kind of on the extra settings page. This is new. This dictates whether or not people will be able to explore the generator. Basically, without minting, will you allow people to see what the generative space looks like and look at different examples? In my opinion, and this is purely subjective, so everyone can make this own choice, their own choice for themselves. In my opinion, 99.9% of what I'm doing benefits the most from having exploration enabled and infinite before mint and post mint. So that is my preference, because then, you know, there are still tokens that can be traded and they represent specific outcomes, and some of them can be more interesting than others, but there's also still a way to explore the full generative space so that you know, the actual art itself, which is the code and the generative space, that doesn't get you know, limited. And then here we're just going to name it blah blah. Actually, one thing I will say that I recommend is include extra metadata like this in your description, because the actual metadata like tags and stuff won't necessarily be treated the same by every place that lists tokens, but the description should sort of always be there, and it's sort of the most basic metadata beyond, like, you know, file location and title and stuff. So by including this in the metadata in the description, you're helping future collectors, you know, in years trace the provenance of the token, basically. So you want to include a snippet like this in all of your descriptions, basically, and that's and once you have your consistent format, whatever format you choose, I like this, you can change it whatever you want, but once you have that format, it's also, you know, it's just formulaic and recognizable. So blah blah blah, you know, this this is if you want a different description for the ones that actually get generated. So, you know, here I have a description. You know what? I'll show an example of this. Here I have this description, which is describing the algorithm, how it works, kind of in plain English. No, in fancy English. And then I have a little bit of stuff about, you know, various feature rarities. But then if we go to a specific token, you can see that the description is different, and now it says, you know, see generative token for description. It still has this because you definitely want to make sure this is on the tokens itself. But I've also added this, you know, intended viewing thing just so that, you know, people know like how they're ideally supposed to view it, but that's optional. So because you are limited with number of characters in these descriptions, sometimes it will benefit you to have one token that goes on sort of the main page, or one description for the main page, and then one description that's for the actual generated things. And then here, the main thing I just want to mention about tags is if you're sharing the source code, try to include open source, because I think it will be fun in the future to look through specifically tokens that, you know, the source code is available. And while JavaScript pieces generally, you know, you can just look in the browser sources, for the Pico-8 stuff it's harder, so it's not really open source by default. So if you're sharing the code in the description, or a link to the code in the description or something, it's nice to mention that. And if it's a tweet card, of course, tag it with the tweet card tag. Tweet cards are so much fun. And then Pico-8, I've been doing this. I tag it with both Pico-8 with no hyphen and Pico-8 with the hyphen. I made a problem for myself when I first started, which is some of my pieces I tagged Pico-8 like this, some of them I tagged like this. Then other people started making Pico-8 art and minting it, and some of them use this and some of them use this. And now I just include both, so that no matter who's searching for Pico-8 art, at least this way it's going to work. And then here is number of editions. So this is how many people can actually, you know, collect it, like how many mints can occur. So for a piece like this, I would probably keep it small, like 128 or 64 or something, or 100, because we didn't bake in a large amount of variety per se. But also you have to know sort of your own demand and calibrate. This is again subjective. Some people like there to be an instant sellout, you know. It's my opinion that that really only sort of benefits bad actors and botters and market manipulators. So I try to use number of editions and price in such a way that if it sells out, it's not going to sell out instantly. It'll sell out, you know, over a longer period of time, which gives people who appreciate your art a more likely chance to actually collect it. And then as it says here, you don't really want to start it with can be collected now, because you want to mint it first, verify that it's working, and then edit it to be available. You know, price, I mean, okay, if there were 100 editions for this one, what would I do? I mean, I made it in like an hour, so honestly, like, I was gonna say 1 tes, but that would probably sell out really fast, which I don't like, because I know that it's mostly going to people who are gonna flip it instantly, often without even seeing what the art looks like. So I might go like 1.5 or 2.5 or something, somewhere in that range for 100 editions for this. Royalties, 25 is kind of high, but again, it's up to you. If I did do this cheaper, like 1 or, you know, 0.5 or something, that's when I do higher royalties, because the initial cost is really low. So I'm setting higher royalties essentially. But if I'm putting like fair pricing, then I typically will put 10% for the royalties. But again, that's subjective, and it's up to you as the artist to decide how you want to do that. And then when you're ready, you're going to click mint token, and presumably you've already synced your wallet, and you're going to click mint token, and then that will basically go through the process. But we can't do that right now because the minting contract is closed. Whew. So that is everything, I think. I think that does pretty much cover everything. So, oh, you know what? No, there is one more thing. Okay, how to do this? If you like this piece, I will mint it. I'm going to mint. Let's see. I'm going to check the stats and see how many unique viewers we had. I'm in this stream. I'm going to mint that many additions plus a little bit. And then if you go into the Pico-8 Discord, I will share in the checkout what I just made channel or whatever. I will share the link to the piece once I mint it. I'll start a thread, and you can comment with your wallet address and your Twitch username in that thread. And if you were here checking out the stream, then I'll send one edition of the piece to you. I'm also going to make it so that I'm also going to, you know what, we'll just do this right now. No, we won't do it right now. I'm going to make it so that when you click, you get a new one, basically. So it won't be an FX hash piece. It'll just be on, you know, Hic-et-Nunc or whatever we're calling it now. But it'll be like a little piece where you can just click and go through, and I'll include a link to the GitHub and stuff. So thanks guys for attending and for asking all the questions and for all the support. Thanks Carson especially. You were fantastic, and you really added a lot to this. Like you really contributed to making this work. So, you know, Carson gets 2 editions, and I won't hear any complaints from anyone about it. And again, oh yeah, let's get the one last link up here. So the final thing to share is this GitHub link. I am going to be uploading all the code from today and all the templates and whatever to this GitHub repo momentarily. So if you want to build off of these things, I've included the unlicensed, so you don't even have to cite me when you release it. You're free to do whatever you want, but I will say I do appreciate a citation or a shout out or something for 2 reasons. 1, because it's fun, but also 2, because then I get to see what people have made, and I actually genuinely want to see what you guys make. Like this has been really fun for me, and I love it, and I love seeing what other people come up with. So yeah, hopefully this has been useful, and you guys can make some cool art, and let's make some fun stuff together. I think the Pico-8 is phenomenal, and I can't quit. You know, there's still so much to explore with it. So yeah, I'm gonna end it now. We're surprisingly somehow exactly on time. So where can I find the Discord link? It is okay. It's in the chat right now, but also if you go to my personal website, whoops, that's not right. Scratch that. Scratch that. Sorry. If you go to abear.xyz in like, you know, 10 minutes or whatever, I will include a link to the Discord in there. No, that's a bad idea. DM me on Discord or on Twitch, or DM Carson, and we can give you a Discord invite. But I won't actually be putting it on that website. And the VOD, yeah, I am saving the VOD, so the VOD will be there. Okay, that's it. Thanks everybody for showing up. Hopefully I'll see you in a future stream or something, or I'll catch your stream. Who knows? Bye.